Good evening. The meeting of the Aurora City Council for June 10th, 2025 is hereby called to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Barrero.
Here.
Alderwoman Garza.
Here.
Alderman Masiacos.
Present.
Alderman Nunez.
Here.
Alderman Franco.
Here.
Alderman Seville.
Here.
Alderman Benuelos.
Here.
Alderwoman Smith.
Here.
Alderman Bug. Alderwoman Bade.
Here.
Alderman Larson.
Here.
Alderman White.
Here.
And Mayor Lash is present.
Alderman Bug requests permission to participate remotely per Section 2-80 based on a reasonable anticipation of an extended illness. Is there a motion
So
to
moved.
allow Alderman
Second.
Bug to participate remotely? Motion made by Alderwoman Smith, seconded by Alderman Franco. Are all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries by voice vote.
Come on, Bob.
Let the record reflect that Alderman Bug has joined the meeting. Is there a motion to approve the appointment of a sergeant at arms
So
for this
moved.
meeting?
Second.
Motion made by Alderwoman Smith, seconded by Alderman Franco. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries by voice vote. Are there any members of the council wishing to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Alderman Franco, thank you. Thank you. We don't have a prayer tonight, but and there's also no mayor's report this evening. We're going to move right into the agenda. No mayoral appointments, no mayor's appointment. Moving to public comment. Madam Clerk, do we have any members of the public wishing to offer public comment?
We do, Mr. Mayor.
Madam Clerk, will you please read the rules of public comment?
Pursuant to the Open Meetings Act, all persons shall be permitted an opportunity to address public officials under the rules established and recorded by the council. Under our rules, any person may address the city council for up to 3 minutes with a maximum of 30 minutes allotted for all public comment. No person, other than the timekeeper or the chair for the purpose of maintaining order, may interrupt a person recognized for public comment during his or her comments. Members of the city council shall not engage with nor respond to a speaker during the time set aside for public comment. Staff is directed to follow up with members of the public with respect to any concerns raised during public comment within the scope of the city's authority following the adjournment of this meeting.
Madam Clerk, thank you. Will you please read the name of the first person wishing to offer public comment tonight?
Rick Lawrence.
Hi, Rick Lawrence, 4th Ward. Last time you guys were here and we were talking about the $95 million worth of debt that you're throwing on the taxpayers and raising the taxes to pay for, Alderman Nunez asked a good question about the one part where there's $26 million for this park over here, renovations. Why isn't that being tied to the revenue? And CFO mistakenly told the truth, that there is no revenue to pay for bonds and that would cover the cost of a $26 million renovation to a park. We lose millions of dollars on and trying to figure out why we're throwing $26 million worth of more debt to lose more money on the taxpayers. So I was going to talk about some other things, but I received an email today from an individual, basically a whistleblower, concerned about the Alliance Group and what's really kind of looks more like a glorified slush fund that has been established. In the past week or so, most of everybody has quit on that board. 9 out of 11 or so have quit. I hear that the director is on her way out, same director that came up in front of you about a month or so ago and gave some type of report, but it was obvious they had nothing going on and nothing planned. There is discrepancies of a couple $100,000 in accounting where money is. There was just a deposit of $176,000 or so. Then they think it's coming from the SSA or so for downtown, trying to figure out why we're putting SSA money into this type of board that has no accountability, no oversight, no ability to FOIA to see where the money's going. The city council at some point dedicated millions of dollars to this group. Where's our money? What's it doing? They were supposed to present a budget in February to the city council. They did not. The city suggested, coerced, whatever you want to say, other businesses to give incredible amounts of money to this alliance group. I hope that they're going to start to demand where their money is. I sure would like to know where, what was it, 3 million or so that the city committed to this? Where's our money? What did they do with it? Because when that Kelly came up here, it was clear they had nothing going. They had no plan. Ted, I would hope that you're going to bring them in front of your committee and demand an accounting of every dime that they spent and get our money back. And if that SSA money is there, I hope the people from that SSA are demanding their money back, because this group is failing. And if this is true, that all these people have quit, and which I was going to print it out for you, but I'll send it to you in an email, what the concerns are in this thing. But
Your
please
time's up,
get our
Mr.
money
Lawrence.
back. Okay?
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Lawrence. Madam Clerk, will you please read the name of the next person wishing to offer public comment?
Joe Lusk.
Thank you, Mr. Lusk. Welcome. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to speak to the city council. I've been here before. So my concern is for the property on 1231 Mitchell Road that's going to be voted on tonight. So this is the third vote happening in the city of Aurora. So I have a property on 451 Turner Road. This house is in very disrepair. You're going to bring this house into the city of Aurora in disrepair. So in your ordinance, I believe you have to fix this house up. So there is a discrepancy with Aurora Turner's. I believe it was stated before that this house is going to be torn down. Is that correct? So I don't think you responded, but okay. So that's why I think that's going to happen. And our general membership meeting decided not to tear it. It's indecisive what they're going to do with it. But they did make a motion not to spend one dime to repair this house. So there's an issue. So I want to sell my house on 441 Turner Road. And with this house in disrepair, this is not good for me. Thank you.
Can I just ask the deputy mayor to please reach out to that gentleman and get his contact information so we can follow up? Madam Clerk, are there any other members of the public wishing to offer public comment?
There are. The next speaker and final speaker is Dina Weiss.
Good evening. Sorry, I don't have much voice, but hopefully you can hear me. I am following Joe Lusk. I am the financial secretary on the board of directors for Turner's. And we have actually put this has been in the works for 1.5 years, and this has only recently become an issue. I have email exchanges with Ed Sieben, the director of zoning, at least he was at the time, where we did discuss that we might actually, in fact, tear this house down. That is probably the long-term plan. And we know we are going to have to do that if and when we choose to have this developed, and that I've got that email in front of me. We also did just hold a vote that this house will not be rehabbed, so Joe is correct in that respect. However, Joe, I think his rationale for not tearing down the house is, and for not bringing into the state of Aurora, into the city of Aurora, is actually misplaced. He has twice presented to the board, one, a $17,000 repair project to that home that he wanted to do himself. And the second time came back and presented a $34,000 repair project to that house. We've had professionals look at it. Needs about $92,000 worth of work. And we've been working with the city of Aurora their fire department to discuss the process of donating it with the possibility of burning it down, so for practice. So with that being said, my hope is that you will follow through on your vote this evening. Thank you.
Thank you for their comments. Madam Clerk, are there any other members of the public wishing to offer public comment?
There are not, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Next, we will hear the consent agenda and the direct-to-council consent agenda in full. Will the clerk please read both agendas in full?
250323, a resolution authorizing the Emergency Management Coordinator to sign the Illinois Public Works Mutual Aid Network Agreement. 250381, a motion authorizing and directing the Chief Human Resources Officer to execute a settlement agreement on behalf of the city in workers' compensation claim number 21Q051559122. 250421, an ordinance annexing property located at 1231 Mitchell Road to the city of Aurora. 250422, an ordinance establishing a conditional use plan development at 1231 Mitchell Road to be incorporated under the existing Aurora Turner's plan description under Parcel A and amending Chapter 49 of the Code of Ordinances by modifying the zoning map attached thereto to an underlying zoning of B2 Business District General Retail. 250423, an ordinance vacating a portion of dedicated public right-of-way for High Street located north of East Indian Trail in Kane County. 250424, a resolution approving the final plat for Aurora Turner's Club subdivision located at 1231 Mitchell Road, 1215 Mitchell Road, and 500 East Indian Trail. 250449, a resolution to select GNV Urban Art as a consultant to use existing funds for the Luminara Festival 2025, the city's second annual interactive light and sound experience. 250458, an ordinance amending the annual budget for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2025 and ending December 31st, 2025, amendment number 2 for the 2025 fiscal year. 250463, a motion authorizing and directing the Chief Human Resources Officer to execute a settlement agreement on behalf of the city and workers' compensation claim number 24Q05M342495. 250464, approval of the minutes of Tuesday, May 27th, 2025 City Council meeting.
So moved.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there a motion to approve both the direct-to-council consent agenda as read? The motion was made by Alderman Franco, seconded by Alderwoman Garza. Are there any questions or items
Mayor,
that
Mayor
members-
Lesh,
Alderman Barrero.
I'd like to request we remove 421, 422, and 424 from the consent agenda, and I would request that we hold them.
Second.
So the motion was made to remove 421, 422, and 424.
Correct.
And then for 423, that'll stay on the agenda, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. The motion was made by Alderman Barrero, and the second was Alderman Mesiacos.
Mr. Mayor,
Alderwoman Smith.
point of order, perhaps council can step in here. When we do, I think we need to understand when we do hold things, which is, you're right, absolutely. But you will be, according to our ordinance, expected to attend the next committee meeting to go through the entire process so that, Rick, you go ahead and articulate that for me. So whoever holds it is supposed to go to the next committee meeting to make sure that you're there when it is discussed so that you know and get all your answers taken, your questions and answers taken care of.
I wasn't requesting to go back to committee. I was just
Right.
asking for it to be held here.
Understood. So I'll let the legal counsel weigh in.
At this point in the meeting, Mr. Mayor, it would only be appropriate to remove the items from the consent agenda. At that point, they would move to the agenda item of unfinished business. At that point, then the city council could take whatever action it wanted to, whether it be referring it back to committee, whether it be approving it, whether it be also in consideration for 2 weeks. Whatever action it wanted to would be on that item of business, not now.
What I understood, Alderman Barrero, is that
Thank
you
you.
wanted to remove the items, have them
Correct.
go to unfinished business, and then held at this level, which is perfectly fine. And then I assume that you have some ongoing questions that you'd like addressed. This is in the first ward, and I assume that you'll be able to work with staff between now and 2 weeks from now to iron out any questions that you might have.
Correct.
Okay. So that being said, any other items that the council would like to ask questions on or remove from the consent agenda? There being no further questions, will the clerk please call the roll on both the consent agenda minus agenda items 421, 422, and 424?
So this is the consent agenda and direct to city council consent agenda minus those 3 items. Alderman Barrero?
Yes.
Alderwoman Garza?
Yes.
Alderman Masiacos?
Yes.
Alderman Nunez?
Yes.
Alderman Franco?
Yes.
Alderman Seville?
Yes.
Alderman Benuelos?
Yes.
Alderwoman Smith?
Yes.
Alderman Bug? Did we lose him?
Somebody from IT? We seem to have lost Alderman Bug. There he is.
Alderman Bug? A vote on
Is that
the...
consent agenda?
Yep, yes, sir.
Yes.
Alderwoman Bade?
Yes.
Alderman Larson?
Yes.
Alderman White?
Yes.
12 yes, 0 no.
Motion carries. The consent agenda and direct council consent agenda are both approved. Moving on to unfinished business. Clerk, please call the roll for the agenda item that's before us tonight.
So the first item under unfinished business is 250446, an ordinance providing for the issuance of not to exceed $95 million general obligation bonds of the city of Aurora, Kane, DuPage, Kendall, and Will counties, Illinois, for the purpose of financing capital improvements in and for said city, providing for the levy of a direct annual tax sufficient to pay the principal of and interest on said bonds, and authorizing the proposed sale of said bonds to the purchaser thereof.
Is there a motion to adopt this ordinance?
So moved.
Moved by Alderman Franco. Is there a second? Second by Alderman Seville. Are there any questions or discussions regarding this ordinance? Alderwoman Smith?
Actually, are you going to do any presentation, or do you want me to just shoot questions at you?
I can just answer questions if you like, or I can, whichever you prefer.
Well, Could we get a
So-
presentation?
So I guess go ahead. we got a short presentation at the COW meeting. If there's anything
Yeah.
you'd like to add, or maybe go ahead with another overview.
Sure, just a brief overview. And before I do that, Chris Minnick, Chief Financial Officer for the city. The items that are before you is an ordinance authorizing general obligation bonds in an amount not to exceed $95 million for 2025 General Obligation Bond Series C. These bonds are being issued to finance various infrastructure improvement projects. Several of them are already begun, actually all of them are already begun, and several of them are already out of the ground. They include fire station construction, fire headquarters, EMA and emergency operations facility, River Edge Park expansion, improvements to a roadway at the location of Farnsworth and Belter, and last disbursements on the Public Works facility. These bonds do pledge the city's full faith and credit taxing power. We would be pledging property tax revenues for repayment. We do anticipate that the impact of the bonds would be about $9.25 monthly for a $300,000 house. The debt service is to be paid from the property tax levy, and the ordinance so authorizes. However, should the revenue stream allow on an annual basis, we would have the ability to decide to abate or remove the property tax levy from the tax bills of our residents on an annual basis. The council makes this decision each and every year in December, whether to abate that levy based on the resources that are available in that particular year to pay debt service. And you can make each year's decision independently, independently based on the availability of resources to make payment in that year. The total of the bonds will not exceed $95 million. We are anticipating that the sale would be in the amount of $90 million as we had discussed. And please remember that this is the second and final tranche of funding. Should the bonds not be issued, these particular projects would halt until we had the funding available to be able to complete them. We do have a little bit of money remaining in that first tranche of funding, and we would be able to carry on for a little bit, but we would not be able to complete the projects as they are scheduled. And that was a plan that was discussed during the budget discussions last December. Current timeline calls for the bond sale and closing to occur in June, with the bond closing in mid-July. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any additional questions that the council may have.
Thank you. I'm going
Oh, go ahead.
to go with Alderwoman Smith. Did you have a question?
Sure, I do. Well, first of all, Chris, thank you for the time that you gave me yesterday. And I think several of my colleagues, I spent about 3-4 hours yesterday just talking to various people about this because I wanted to have a thorough understanding of, is this the only way we can do it? Is there another way? You know, we live in the state of Illinois. Whenever anybody hears property tax increase, you start going into a mad panic. I also think it's really important to point out to the public that this is an item that is partially being affected by our census. If we had our correct number in our census, this $9, according to Mr. Minnick, would probably be half of that.
Yeah.
So we're going to continue to see, go ahead.
Yeah, we, because of the undercount in the population, there is a revenue loss of about $3.6 to $3.7 million annually in the general fund. That equates to about half of the debt service anticipated for this particular bond. So that's one of the practical impacts. Those resources are not available for any use.
Yes,
for the city to be able to utilize those. So
And
that's one of the practical impacts of the undercount of the census.
And I hope as we go forward, our public understands how important these census are in many different ways, and this is the first big hit that we're getting because of them. So in going through this, you gave me some really good reality checks. Not voting in favor of this, which is where I was kind of wavering, is really putting a halt to number one, the third fire station that I fought so hard to get in, and that would take away safety protection to a chunk of our city. It would put River Edge to a complete stop, which is a revenue base for our city, and as it is completed, is going to be even a higher revenue base. And also, I want to make it clear today, because I know where this will go when it leaves this room, that we are not deciding on a tax increase today. That will come in December when we, as you just pointed out, we'll get the levy as low as possible, and that each year we'll be able to revisit this. And if there is any way, there's nobody up here that wants a property tax increase. We have to pay the same property tax increase everybody else does. But public safety is one of our most important parts of our job, and this is covering a tremendous amount of public safety. So after all the homework and everything that I did, yesterday morning when I woke up, I was still not voting in favor of it. Through conversation with all of my colleagues, I will be supporting this today. And again, I appreciate the reality checks of where we are, and we'll stay on top of this, and we'll be as responsible as we can in December when we have to make those major decisions. So thank you.
Thank you.
Alderman Franco.
Yeah, question. First, I have two questions. If we were to
Turn your
suspend these
mic on.
projects
Yeah, I'm sorry.
if we were to suspend these projects for a couple of years, would it be fair to say that it's going to cost more?
It will definitely cost more. We are under contract with, I believe, all of the projects. And we would be responsible to pay for all the work that has been done to date. Although I have not looked at each individual contract, there would be damages that would typically apply in those kinds of cases.
Okay.
For materials and
Right.
items and that would be procured by the vendors.
Would there be legal ramifications against the city if we didn't finish these contracts on time or didn't uphold our end of what we agreed to?
I believe there would, yes, but that's probably more appropriate to legal.
Right.
With any of the contracts, if we're not able to perform as we had agreed to, there would be damages that we would be responsible for addressing. The specific damages and the specific penalties would vary contract from contract, but if you have a vendor that's expended funds based on something that the city council approved and then we're now canceling it, they would be entitled to their payment for those expenses.
So I guess encapsulating all that, it would be fair to say then too, even though it potentially will be a tax increase, it's fair to say that this will be less expensive to approving it now than violating contracts and waiting a couple years and spending more money for supply chain issues and stuff like that. Would be a fair assessment?
I believe it would, yes.
Okay. Thank you, that's all I have.
Mayor,
Alderman Masiacos.
I just want to make a few comments. You tell me if I'm way off, Mr. Minnick. But first of all, as far as construction is concerned, prices always go up. Cost of living always goes up. We have no control over it. That's why EAVs go up as well on our tax bill to help alleviate some of those challenges that a municipality might find. So let's get that straight. Two, something was brought up in regards to a concern for December tax increase, and quote, keep levy as low as possible. 2.5 years ago, the city council, a few of them are not here today, raised property taxes 2.25% overall. And that was to help cover the $3.6 million that the city lost. And not only did we recovered the $3.6 million, we received over $6 million when it was all said and done between the tax levy and the EAV. And two, we just passed another tax increase in December for a total of 4.8%, or 87%, that raised our tax levy for debt service well over $1 million to help pay for some of this. Correct?
Correct,
Okay.
but the majority
All
of
right.
that
So
property
the previous
tax
city
increase
council
went
has
for
already
public
approved,
safety pensions.
has already approved to cover for these things.
Not for the projects that are in front of you this evening.
Okay, so that, the 1 point, it's over $1 million. I just know, I was just looking at it.
It was 1.75 million.
1.7 million in increase in debt service. That's why we raise taxes, right? They'll take care of the previous debt service. So now we have to deal with the debt service on this on approved projects, correct? Some that have already started and some that are anticipating on starting right now.
Correct.
All right, okay. I just want to make sure we have some things clarified and straightened out when we talk about taxes, because I think it's important that we understand where we came from in order to understand where we're going as well. So we've already approved these projects, not me personally, but especially with Station 4. But the reality is, we're getting Station 4 that's not a total complete design, first and foremost. There's still outstanding things that need to be designed and bid out. They're not going to be competitively bid. One of the reasons why we also have a $5 million contingency added to this debt service allocation before us. Not 90, but making it 95. So I just want to make sure that we understand that we don't know the final cost for Station 4, because we approved a project that didn't have a fully competitive price. And I'm going to use the words in the contractor's document saying we're even waiting for a premium cost main stairwell in the building. And on top of this design, again, I want to reiterate what I said before, EMA's not getting everything they want as well. It's not a fully designed building for both for the fire department and for EMA. Only the fire department and the fire chief are getting everything they want. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderwoman Bade, then Alderman Nunez next.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Chris, for taking my call earlier. Alderman Masiaco went over the contingency. Can you just expand that? We had budgeted for $90 million
Yes,
last year
and
for
that
this
will be
bond.
that will be the deposit to the project fund. Will be
And-
$90 million. That is what we are anticipating issuing the bonds.
Okay, so $5 million is contingency.
There,
Additional $5
we will not request $95 million for the bond issue. We will request $90 million.
90 million.
Yes.
And between the budget session and now, are there any additional projects added to the scope, or the scope is same as?
I believe the scope is the same.
Okay. So in Legistar, it still says 95 million?
Yeah, that is how the ordinance is written. It's, but we will request $90 million.
Today, we will approve 95 million.
Up to, but we will not
Up to.
request $95 million. We will take a $90 million deposit to the project fund.
Will that be added to Legistar after words?
We would need to approve the ordinance as it's written this evening, so we would not necessarily put that into Legistar.
Mr. Minnick,
Yes.
can you explain, I think we had, earlier this year, we had a $40 million bond go out. And what was the total price that we deposited?
35.6.
Okay,
So you're anticipating similar numbers on
Yes.
this coming back?
Yes.
thank you. Thank you.
Alderman Nunez?
So I'm not opposed to the projects, but I just have a question regarding our existing bonds.
I'm
Existing
sorry?
bonds that we
Oh,
have.
okay.
Yeah. I know last week you touched on some that are maturing this year. With those that are not, is there an option to maybe extend those to lower what our payments are on other remaining bonds? Or is that something we've explored?
We could take a look at each individual bond series has what's known as a call date, which is typically bonds are written such that, let me back up a second. A bond is not like a revolving loan. You can't just pay ahead on it. But typically, there's a methodology that allows you to redeem them early called a call provision. Typically, those go out about 10 years, and they're written such that at a point in time after a date certain, you have the right, the city would have the right to do what's known as call a bond and bring it in and have it mature. So there are refundings that do occur within the marketplace. Typically what happens is it's like a refinancing for a mortgage. Interest rates go down, you can get the debt a little cheaper, you can reduce the monthly pay, or in this case, the semi-annual and annual payment. So you go ahead and refund those bonds. In this particular case, we would have to call them. If we wanted to extend the term, we would probably issue what's known as a refunding bond, and then we would be able to extend the term and lower the annual payment, if that was the goal. Does that answer the question?
It does.
Okay.
It does. Now, tying it back.
And again, that's going to be dependent on market conditions as
course.
well.
So if we were to move forward with refunding some bonds, would that help lower what this estimated $109 or $108 and change increase of tax?
On this particular bond, no, but it would lower, or it could potentially lower the property tax levy overall that we request for debt service. Keep in mind, the city already abates about $11 to $12 million on an annual basis, meaning that we make $11 or $12 million in debt service payments that do not go on the property tax bills of our residents. So we do have a healthy history of using the abatement process when those resources are available to allow us to alleviate that tax levy.
Thank you.
Yes.
Alderman Banuelos?
So are you saying that this bond could not be paid off early?
No, this particular one has a 10-year call provision, so so we would be able to pay it off early. The only thing is these bonds are invested in by typically institutional investors, and they do build those types of call provisions into the bond. But there are mechanisms that we would be available to do what's known as an advance refunding, where we can put money into an escrow. Typically, now, those are not quite as economically feasible as they used to be. They used to be done on a tax-exempt basis. Now the deals are taxable. So the interest rates, typically you don't see them getting cheaper over time due to the difference between the tax-exempt rate and the taxable rate.
And Mr. Minnick, we did talk about, I don't want to put you on the spots about, because I don't remember the call dates, but if interest rates do go down, that will be part of our plan on not this bond, but previous bonds that do have call dates coming up, that we would want to refinance those at a lower interest rate should the opportunity present itself.
Correct. Yeah, we're always taking a look at market conditions and seeing whether or not there are opportunities to be able to refund a bond for savings.
May I ask another question?
Alderwoman Smith?
Yes. So, Mr. Minnick, I need some clarification because I know I've asked more than once if there is any other way than the way that was presented to us in the ordinance. And it appears the conversation that you just had with the Fourth Ward Alderman, there is a possible other way that we could do it because he asked if there was another avenue of not going in the direction that this ordinance is written. I just need some clarification on the conversation you just had about extending current bonds and what that would look like versus new bonds that we're talking about today.
Yeah, we'd have to take a look at a financing plan to see if that was feasible. We'd have to take a look at our bond portfolio, but to refinance the bonds, we could take a look at that as part of this between now and the end of the year and decide whether or not there's a possibility that we could do that. But that would impact the bonds that we have outstanding now, not the bond issue that's in front of you this evening.
Okay, so the question that you answered for Jonathan is different than what we're talking about with the $90 million.
Correct.
Yes.
It involves taking a look at whether the conditions are economically feasible and that the market conditions would generate savings on a refunding transaction for the bonds that we have outstanding now.
Okay.
So,
thank you for that clarification. I appreciate it.
Alderman Bug, you had a question?
I do, thank you. First, let me say on the record, I hate virtual meetings. I had that discussion with Alderwoman Smith a few weeks ago. So I wish I could be there with you. I'm not 100%, so I'm going to go through this slowly. Mr. Minnick, you made a statement that in your opening that the projects are ongoing. And I needed a clarification because I have not been out by the police department and where our proposed fire station will go. Is that project ongoing?
I'm not sure if they're out of the ground yet, Alderman, but I do know that it was their intent to begin, once they had approval, to begin ordering the materials and starting to take into account the long lead time items and the construction supply chain that they would need to do, as any contractor would do when they look to ramp up for a project. So they may or may not, I have not been out to the police station to know whether or not they're out of the ground yet, or whether they're moving dirt or exactly what they're doing. But there would be work that would have been done as part of that. We have signed the contract with them, so I consider that, obligated at this point.
Okay. Obligated but not begun. So I appreciate Alderwoman Smith. She brought up the census, which is very important. And the numbers and the revenue that we are losing from that causes me to be more cautious and not to push forward without taking a good long look at things. Now, we have a number of projects that are, the horse is already out of the gate. So we're building, we're moving. River Edge Park looks like a bomb went off, but those are ongoing projects. And this council, or actually I should say the former council, moved on the fire department headquarters. We had the opportunity to hold that, to take a look at it, to take a look at cost savings, to take a look at getting additional grants. And after having a long talk with Alderman Masiacos, who is an architect, and I am not, the questions that he had about that project, it caused me to take pause. Now, do we need a new headquarters? The answer is yes. Those lead times, we need to be responsive to our residents as far as fire safety. However, at the same time, we cannot be fiscally irresponsible. So I would say at this time, and if we were able to move on the ongoing projects and leave the other, and Alderman Franco said that we would hold this for, I think he said 2 to 3 years. Well, I never heard that. I don't think the review that we were looking for a few weeks ago was anywhere near 2 or 3 years. As a matter of fact, it was months. However, someone wanted to push things quickly to get a feather in his cap, and this got approved, I believe, without taking a full look, a full review of our cost savings. So because this bond issue is in full and whole, and I have to answer, as each one of the aldermen has to answer to their residents. So I'll go to my next door neighbor and he'll ask me, why am I paying an additional $110 a year? I would want to say that I turned every stone to find savings before I voted for that. That I didn't push through something quickly. That I didn't forego looking at grants to save the city money. So because this bond issue, as I said, is in full, I will be voting no, and I will work with the administration and the other aldermen to move forward in a different manner, a different bond issue, perhaps smaller, perhaps looking at these grants for the fire department. And like I said, we're aldermen, we're elected, so we have to answer to the residents. And that's what my answer to them will be.
Alderman Franco?
I want to make a clarification for Alderman Bugg said. Alderman Franco did not particularly talk about a project. I said these projects. We have a number of projects there. So let's just get that straight. I didn't talk about one of those. And when you portray it as fiscally irresponsible, I don't know that it's correct either. That's your opinion. I think it'd be irresponsible for us to suspend this, have legal arguments against us, and pay more down the line, because we know it's going to cost more down the line. So that's my opinion, is it would be fiscally irresponsible to suspend stuff that we know are going to work for us, that we figure we need. We wouldn't ever tax our taxpayers for things we don't need. We're talking public safety. So I just want to clarify that. That's an opinion on one thing and a misrepresentation on another. So I said projects. Thank you.
And please,
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
Go ahead, man.
And please let me clarify that when the construction manager, that firm Leopardo, when they quoted us the GMP, the gross maximum price, or guaranteed maximum price, they had certain bids. They had requested certain bids and costs on materials and services from the folks that they put out the items to bid. There was a date of expiration on those particular bids that I believe was a day or two after the final city council vote. It might have been a little bit longer than that, might have been about a week. But in any event, that those bids, I would assume that they have entered into those contracts given the expiration date on those bids, and given that that's what their guaranteed maximum price was based on.
Mr. Mayor?
Alderman Bug, I'll let you respond, and then I'd like to hear from anybody that hasn't spoken already after this. And
Thank you. It's not my opinion that it'd be fiscally irresponsible not to look at every grant, every opportunity for cost savings that we could for any of the projects. So if you think that's an opinion, then answer that way to your residents.
Thank you. Just to assure the council on future spending, I know that Alderman Nunez had brought up other projects that this potentially might be used for. Upon taking office, we did immediately say that we would not be building the City of Lights Center. I've been working with Public Works Department to pare down, pause, or significantly reduce some of the other projects that were on hold. There's still some, like Broadway. I think everybody up here agrees that Broadway, something needs to be done. It's a state project to repave it, but all of the bricks that are falling apart present a real trip and fall hazard that the city would be liable for. So we're going to have to work, and we're doing the best that we can to cut back. We're working for, to cut back and restructure in some of our staffing positions that aren't getting rehired. So we are working on a number of fronts. It's not just paying for the bills that are before us tonight, but I also didn't vote for a lot of the items here, but if it goes to a tie, I understand that the city does have to make that decision. So any other questions from aldermen who haven't spoken?
I'll wait.
Thank you.
Mayor Lash.
Alderman Barrero.
Yes, I wanted to make a few comments. One is that these projects were all approved by us, and many of us attended the groundbreaking ceremonies for those. And you can drive around town and see them under construction. And the reason we did it was for public safety, to enhance public safety, to keep our residents safe, make them safer, also to address traffic issues, and also for economic development purposes. So most of these projects are in Ward 1. We're talking about Station 4, Station 13, Rivers Edge Park, and also the road improvements on Farnsworth and Bilter Road. So these projects are needed for various reasons I just stated. What we need to discuss, in my opinion, is we need to discuss the use of the new growth in gaming tax receipts and how we would use those funds. I know when the casino first came to town, a good portion of those proceeds were used to abate taxes for bonds. We need to have that discussion to make sure that we have our priorities straight and not look at this as just newfound money, but to use it in a way that is doing something for the greater good, such as these projects. Many of the bonds that we have, you can look in the city's budget documents and financial reports, and you can see that many of them are abated from different sources of revenues. which we can look at every year. And we can discuss that at a greater length during the budget process. So I expect that we're going to have some really deep discussions during our next budget process. I'm looking forward to that. So with that said, with these projects currently under construction, there's no turning back. And so, you know, I hear the need or the desire to try to get grants. It's hard to get grants when the projects are already in motion, unfortunately. So I will be voting yes because we cannot go backwards with these.
Alderman Larson.
Thank you. I had a quick question about the funding for these projects that are currently happening. Just looking at the bill list for today, I see some payments to Corrigan Clark and R.C. Wegman for two of these projects, River Edge Park and the fire station. They're coming out of, it looks like the first 2025 GO bond fund.
Yes.
If the council were to delay this or vote no, I don't know if that's going to happen, but if that were to happen, how long would we have before we run out of money to pay these and the legal consequences come up?
Yeah. I'm going to have to hedge it a little bit because I'm not sure exactly how they're I'm not out there day to day to see how much progress they're making, but it would not be long. I would anticipate that no later than the end of July we would be out of money again. It would depend on how fast they're going, what kind of work they're doing as well. Quite frankly, but it would not take long at all. Plus, I don't know that we would continue work. I think what we would more likely do is probably pretty rapidly suspend work on the projects and conserve any money that may be left for any damages or any work that we might need to pay for that's already been completed. So I don't know that we'd keep pushing forward tremendously. I think it would be a situation where we'd likely try to close them down pretty quickly, quite honestly.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of unfortunate. You know, we need to support our fire department, and you know, I don't think all these projects are bad. You know, I think it's unfortunate that they're all happening at the same time, and we need to take out this money, but this has already been approved, and it seems like the consequences of not making these payments would be more irresponsible. So yeah, I think that's where we are.
Mayor, just one final comment.
Alderwoman Smith.
Yeah, so my colleague in Ward 9 talking a tremendous amount about responsibility. Well, responsibility, first and foremost, is to our ward, but then responsibility is for the entire city. So when you sit in a ward that has a fire station that handles your ward and takes care of your ward, as those of us that do, yeah, I can understand why you could say to your neighbor, I've got to be responsible with your money. I too talk to many of my neighbors, and I will have 2 fire departments, and one close to you would be 3, right around my ward. So this isn't about what's right for my ward. This is about what's right for the entire city. This is about what's right for the people that will be not serviced appropriately with public safety if we don't move forward with Station 13. So I think, you know, we're going to go back to your opinion versus my opinion and leave it at that. Responsibility would be not to stop the construction at River Edge. River Edge is a highly revenue-generated facility, and voting no against this will stop that construction. Voting no against this is going to put lawsuits into the hands of the city of Aurora. So that's from my perspective, my opinion, and I just felt like I needed to share that as I listened to your opinion.
Are there any new questions from the members who haven't had a chance to speak? There's been a motion and a second. There being no further questions, will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Barrero?
Yes.
Alderwoman Garza?
Yes.
Alderman Masiacos?
Yes.
Alderman Nunez?
Yes.
Alderman Franco?
Yes.
Alderman Seville?
Yes.
Alderman Benuelos?
Yes.
Alderwoman Smith?
Yes.
Alderman Bug?
No.
Alderwoman Bade?
No.
Alderman Larson?
Yes.
Alderman White?
Yes.
10 yes, 2 no.
Motion carries. This ordinance is adopted. There's no new business. Nope.
Mr. Mayor, you do
The
have
two-
those three items from the.
The
consent
two
agenda.
items on unfinished, three
Yes.
items on unfinished, which
Correct.
we're going to hold at this level.
Yes.
421, 422, 424.
And in this particular instance, if it's the preference of the Ward 1 alderman to have this held here for 2 weeks, and the city council is generally amenable to that, you may just want to ask for unanimous consent to do that.
Is there a consent to hold the item at this level instead of kicking it back to committee and bringing it through the whole process, allowing Alderman
Yes.
Barrero to ask his questions and address the issue at hand in his ward? Consent?
Yes.
Can you read the item?
I'll ask the clerk to please read the three agenda items.
250421, an ordinance annexing property located at 1231 Mitchell Road to the city of Aurora. 250422, an ordinance establishing a conditional use plan development at 1231 Mitchell Road to be incorporated under the existing Aurora Turner's plan description under Parcel A and amending Chapter 49 of the Code of Ordinances, City of Aurora by modifying the zoning map attached thereto to an underlying zoning of B2 Business District General Retail. 250424, a resolution approving the final plat for Aurora Turner's Club subdivision located at 1231 Mitchell Road, 1215 Mitchell Road, and 500 East Indian Trail.
Alderwoman Bade, did you have a question on this?
From previous meeting, I just wanted to ask a question from the corporate council.
Probably the one I just answered.
If we put something on hold on city council, does the person who's putting it on hold have to give the reason? I mean, I know Mr. Mayor did, but.
What I've recommended in this particular instance, since the Ward 1 alderman has articulated that he'd like to have a time to discuss the particular proposals with petitioners as well as with staff, so long as the rest of the council is amenable to it by unanimous consent, holding it here for 2 weeks is probably the easiest way to do it.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Okay, then for the treasurer's report, so are there any objections to holding it at this level?
No.
No objections, we'll hold it here for 2 weeks and revisit it under old business in unfinished business in the next city council meeting as a whole. With that, we'll go to agenda item 250494, the treasurer's report. Mr. Minnick, if you want to explain briefly how the reports work for some of the newer members and take any questions that we might have.
Absolutely. Enclosed in your packet, Chris Minnick, Chief Financial Officer, City Treasurer. Enclosed in your packets this evening was the April 2025 Treasurer's Report. The Treasurer's Report is actually an interim financial report of each fund's status as of the end of each month relative to its revenues, its expenditures, its surplus or deficit for the fiscal year, also the fund balance at the end of the month, as well as the cash cash balance in each particular fund at the end of each month. Its use is to try to see any developing patterns for revenues and expenditures, any problematic areas that we might have, and try to mitigate the impacts as necessary, either through mid-year budget adjustments or through subsequent action during the next year's budget cycle. This particular April Treasurer's Report for April 2025 does include the impacts of all the audit entries. We're in the process right now of finalizing the audit reports, and we should have those available by the end of the month. The treasurer's report is intended to give kind of a big picture financial information, and then we can follow up on any detail items that there may be as well. Typically, we report the items and the amounts on the treasurer's report on a cash basis. The numbers will change as we adjust to an accrual-based method for the audit. We do need to present our city's financial statements in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, and we typically handle that after the fiscal year ends in conjunction with the audit process. Additionally, with the new report, we have made a change in presentation beginning in April of 2025. Those who have been on the council for a while may remember that for the first several months of the fiscal year, we typically show extremely low revenues that distort to a degree the financial picture of the fund. From now on, we're going to present the report with accruals and estimates for various state revenues and property tax revenues that have significant delays in the receipt and presentation on the report. It impacts the general fund only. All the other funds will still be presented on the cash basis. They don't typically have revenue sources that have the same kind of lag that the general fund experiences. This will present a more accurate picture of the general fund's true status as we go throughout the year, and the revenues are presented on a more up-to-date basis. There may, again, be some slight adjustments as we adjust those estimates to the actuals that we experience over the course of the fiscal year, but overall it's going to be a much more realistic picture of where each fund stands over time. The expenditure presentation, again, will not change. They're going to be handled on the same basis. So when we also took a look at 2024 and converted April of 2024 to the new method so we could get a true apples to apples comparison of April of 25 as compared to taking a look back to April of 2024. And the results are actually very similar. The citywide cash balances and fund balances are both higher at the end of April 2025 as compared to 2024. Cash citywide increased to $332 million at April 30th of 2025 as compared to $302 million at April 30th of 2024. Fund balance increased from 288 million citywide to 332 million. So the results are similar for each of those years to slightly positive. I do also expect that as we go through the fiscal year, we're going to see some of those balances come down as we pay for various items and projects that are occurring. The casino capital improvements that we've just discussed, debt service payments, etc. So jumping into the general fund results as of April 30th, we do have approximately $70.5 million in revenues. That compares to about $63 million in expenses, or roughly a $7.4 million surplus. That's good news, but we are going to keep an eye on that number as we move forward, particularly as we get into the summer months. The summer months tend to be when we have a lot of expenditure activity. It's a very busy season for the city. The revenues are trending slightly ahead of expenditures at this point in the year, with charges for services, licenses and permits, and interest income trending higher than anticipated. Our first property tax receipts, we got a small disbursement in May. We'll see the largest chunk of those property tax disbursements come in during the month of June. General departmental expenses are below budget at this point in time, as are the total expenditures for the general fund. So we are on track for some good results in the general fund for 2025 so far, and we'll keep an eye on that moving forward. We do expect that we will be presenting the May Treasurer's Report. We just closed those books, I believe, late last week. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that anyone may have related to the Treasurer's Report.
I acknowledge receipt of the April 2025 Treasurer's Report. Are there any questions
Mayor,
from
make
the
a motion to
council?
approve our bills.
Agenda item 25, so that's agenda item 25494. No further questions on the treasurer's report.
Treasurer's report, my apologies.
No, there's no motion needed on the treasurer's report, but if there's no further questions on the report, we'll move to the bill summary, large bill list. Okay. Motion made by Alderman Mesiacos on paying the large bill, seconded by Alderwoman Smith. Are there any questions on the bill list? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Barrero?
Yes.
Alderwoman Garza?
Yes.
Alderman Masiacos?
Yes.
Alderman Nunez?
Yes.
Alderman Franco?
Yes.
Alderman Seville?
Yes.
Alderman Benuelos?
Yes.
Alderwoman Smith?
Yes.
Alderman Bug?
Yes.
Alderwoman Bade?
Yes.
Alderman Larson?
Yes.
Alderman White?
Yes.
12 yes, 0 no.
Motion carries. The bills are paid. There's no need for a closed session. There being no further business to come before the city council, is there a motion to adjourn this meeting? Motion made by Alderman Seville, seconded by Alderwoman Garza. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. This meeting is adjourned.